Pokemon are already stupidly dangerous, but how much more dangerous do they really get through Mega Evolution? Aside from the power boost, the abilities they gain are insane. Mewtwo can destroy skyscrapers just by the thought crossing his mind. Mega Gengar gains the ability to access other dimensions. Mega Alakazam knows the entire course of your life from birth to death just from glancing at you. So there's a lot more going on here than a flashy cutscene and a temporary 100 stat boost. So I'm ranking every Mega Evolution Pokemon based on threat level. Everyone so far. And if that's the topic, then let's just get Ordino out of the way now. What's he even doing here? Been asking that for the past 10 years. It's a unique choice, to be fair enough, but aside from that, like, who gave you the Mega Stone? Must have battered Flygon backstage to take his spot in the Royal Rumble. This one topic goes against Ordino's whole gimmick. If anything, in lore, it's only become even less of a threat and amplifies its abilities as a cleric. There's so many other Megas I get into here where it's like, the Mega Stone has only further amplified their gamer rage. Ordino is the opposite. Ordino's the concerned girlfriend who's one League of Legends keyboard smash away from leaving their disgusting slob of a partner. Mega Evolution is only going to amplify its passive nature. Ordino, far and away the least threatening Mega Evolution. A close second to the least threatening Mega, and not by power because it absolutely could pull off a shift or two plaguing society with its freakish brain and black hole opening powers, but Gardevoir by nature is out for the people, for the common folk. I don't think it would be of any threat as much as it has the power to be. It's a Pokemon whose powers heighten when protecting others, and by that logic, its powers would surely cease if it used them for evil, maybe. I don't know. This Pokemon, Mega Form or not, is an anti-threat. If Gardevoir were of any threat to you, then you are canonically a gooner. That's the only brand of person Gardevoir wouldn't pull the punches with, and frankly, you have it coming. She will sentence you to the anti-joking cross. Not much action going on with Sablei's transformation here. This one's just a Sableye who won the lottery a little bit. The guy just seems to be buzzing to be in possession of a giant Gemarald. It's their thing. They just can't get enough of him, can they? Unless you already think base form Sableye is somehow like this nuclear level threat, then it's gotta be a very low threat decision for Mega Sableye. I don't think he changes much. I mean, he can deflect any attack, but seemingly it's not gonna do much to retaliate. Although, hypothetically, getting slumped with a Hylian Rupee of comical proportions, that's a GBH charge. That massive jewel getting thrown to the back of your head, that'd give you a Mega Evolution. One that gives you wheels and a text-to-speech keyboard. But I highly doubt he'd ever resort to that, because oh, he loves it. He loves his big JO crystal too much to ever risk losing or damaging it. Mega Slowbro, he can't be of too much danger. The Mega transformation happens to the Shelder, swallowing the whole thing. And from the sounds of it, he's not even a Slowbro anymore. This is a Mega Shelder. You're pretty much taking on a drunk Slowpoke wearing a traffic cone he found on the walk to the chicken shop. And how threatening that opponent may be is entirely an eye of the beholder situation. A subjective matter. But objectively speaking, at least for the Slowbro, it's a devolution. I mean, obviously, it could probably do some damage, at least underwater. But I wouldn't be too worried to one day find out this monster existed in real life either. Mega Kangaskhan would be very threatening, but only if it got the impression you're a threat to its young, so it's not really any different here, is it? I don't think Kangaskhan itself even changes, so the threat remains relatively the same. It really just depends on how about it you think the kid is. This one's just getting jumped by a council house mum and that kid in your year who's blatantly going to prison 6 months after getting your final grades. Pokedex is saying the child is only good at fighting and nothing else. Yeah, that's exactly how they all start, and even then, their idea of being good at fighting is keeping a screwdriver in their hoodie pocket. So as far as Mega Evolution goes, very far from the most threatening. This is like a local level threat, a neighborhood street level enemy, one you could very easily avoid by just not bothering them. Lopunny, it seems to just get a bit more in tune with the MMA, starts taking the gym graft a bit more seriously. So really, it's not any more threatening than any semi-decent fighting type already. The biggest threat Lopunny poses, at least to a shockingly sizable amount of the Pokemon audience, is them getting slapped with a bestiality charge. Latios and Latias, I can't really see them being a big problem. Yeah, they're just a pair of private jets, essentially. You know, before they handed them off to you, like an HM disc. They used to be a Roman legend and all, so they'd probably leg it before even thinking about causing any harm. Although they still are legendaries, they could definitely do a bit of damage. Maybe a threat to our airspace, but even then, I just can't see them being a huge problem. You just send in a big enough drone, and that'd probably be enough to fend them off. Altaria, seemingly, they just get a better singing voice. Now this one is very dependent. What kind of music is Mega Altaria into? That very much determines the threat level here. Because if it's singing the bangers, bit of Champagne Supernova gets on the table for a Stephen Bunting Darts walk on. Yeah, that's no bother then, is it? But on the off chance, it's contributing to the genre of nonce rock, like Fallen in Reverse, Machine Gun Kelly, then the threat level would have to be at least on par with anyone on the register. Mega Bennett's threat really depends on what its cursing powers actually mean, because he's already got the motive filled with vindictiveness and all of that, but what exactly does cursing mean in this instance? What can he do for me? Because if it's just going to make me a little bit slow, yeah, I can live with that, especially if I get a nice little juice of my own to my hypothetical attack and defense stats. But if it's the kind of curse that means one time within each calendar month, a horde of chimpanzee will spawn at random and attack me for upwards of 20 minutes, then I'd have to give some reconsideration to the threat level. He can also trap my foreskin in one of his zippers too, that's quite bad. From what I can tell, Venusaur, he just gets a bit more wedge. Thicker vines, thicker bulb, thicker bundle, a full house of thickness. But there's nothing too standout about Venusaur compared to the others here. I mean, I wouldn't want to take a vine whip off the guy, but I just don't think he'd be a detriment to society, even if it wanted. Especially if he lived where I'm at. I mean, this time of year, he'd pass out from the lack of sun alone. He'd be passed out down the back of the road, looking like SpongeBob, raw dogging Sandy's tree dome. Sceptile and Ampharos, an oddly similar level of danger compared to their base forms. They both just unlock dormant dragon genes and have themselves a fairly generic power-up. Nothing particularly stands out about these two either. I guess Sceptile, he gains the power to shoot off a portion of its tail like a missile. R/mildly interesting. Tail missile, well met. This deserves my update. Yeah, it's kind of cool. It shoot off a tail missile, whatever, but I'd struggle to call either one of them a notable Mega Evolution threat. Like, I reckon in practice, a very well-trained Ampharos could probably take a poorly trained Mega Ampharos. The perks you're getting here, they're not too insane compared to a lot of the others. Mega Absol is somewhat of a huge threat, but only in the same way a roller coaster might be to a pregnant woman or 90-year-old pensioner. Pokedex entry with some strong word in here. Faint-hearted people expire from the shock of the sight of it. I think you're mugging me off there, describing a loved one's passing like they're a pint of milk that got lost in the fridge for 2 weeks. I'd like to send my condolences to you and your family for the recent expiration of your nan. Oh yeah, you don't want to go near nan. She's been gone off for like 3 months now. It's starting to curdle around the edges. That's just what happens in Death Note. Like Absol, he's got a pair of Shinigami eyes now, and he can see the big expiration date sticker on the back of our heads. So I guess you could say Absol is a huge threat if you're prone to heart palpitating jump scares, or if you're just getting a bit up there in age. If the shock of seeing Mega Absol is what packs you in for good, from your perspective, you probably thought you've just met the Grim Reaper. Imagine the Grim Reaper actually does pay you a visit when you die. After Mega Absol, he's just shocked you to death. You think you've already met the guy, and then the real one comes in. Am I a two-man job? Am I getting swatted here? Gee, who's managed to dox me in purgatory? For everyone else, however, the 18 to 49 demographic in particular, Absol is one of the less threatening mega forms here. We've got ones here that they just get off of violence. Absol, however, still dislikes the fighting. It gains this intimidating aura, but mentally, he still wants to play the pacifist. I'd like to think, just by looking at Mega Gallade, there's gotta be some honor there. He won't fight violently just for the sake of it. He'd be out to subdue the threat, to a lesser extent than Gardevoir, but still. But as one of the lesser threatening Mega Evolutions, I would say, the guy, he isn't completely sourceless either here. The psychic powers, he's a lot more than a jab merchant who can also deliver a future sight concussion to you in the near future. The thing I wasn't aware of here was those psychic powers get used to reshape the blades on its arms when needed, potentially making Mega Gallade almost like a Deoxys who can only shape his noodle arms into an assortment of weeaboo weaponry. Mega Medicham with 4 arms created purely out of willpower. So, yeah, near impossible to even attempt fighting in a 1v1, but at the very least, it's likely no different from getting jumped by 4 people. The psychic powers do make it much more threatening than your standard fighting type, like a Mega Lopunny here. But also, like, you know how done in you'd be fighting a Machamp? Well, imagine that, with 2 extra fists, quads the size of a pair of beanbags, and the brain of an enlightened Shaolin monk who's been visited by a mighty boost creature that taught them the meaning of the universe. Psychic powers, it just adds a whole other element. Getting cracked in the jaw, it's awful enough, everyone knows, but no one knows what it's like to get your spirit, the jaw of your soul spun. I bet it kills though, like literally and figuratively, getting your soul punched in. I can't explain it, but I just have this feeling that it'd probably feel the same way a candle does getting extinguished. Either that, or like one of them cartoon punches where the outline of their fist is sticking 3 feet out from your back. But even with all of that, Mega Medicham, I reckon it's gotta be on the lower tiers here. But still, an ungodly, formidable street level threat. Mega Swampert, he just becomes a big, beefy geezer. There's nothing pretty about it. What we're witnessing here during that Mega Stone transformation, that right there is a perma-bulk. Much more threatening than your standard version. But another one is a little bit middling compared to the insane power-ups other Mega Evolutions are feasting on. Although, threatening to both land and sea, he's a versatile big boy. And he may very well have the meanest right hook out of any Mega Pokemon. Inflates its organs with air and then uses the pressure to punch a lot harder. He got fists that wham-sized. He got them Brock Lesnar 5XL, had to be custom-made UFC glove hands, a kind of equipment they use to crush cars into cubes, powered like a gunshot for all we know, with all that air pressure. He's got to be doing some heavy damage. Mega Aggron, quite shockingly, it's gonna have to be a quite middling one here as well. It's not to say he's of zero threats, but again, he's not really a standout either. He doesn't get anything too beefy for him relative to the base Aggron. It's sort of like how if you're already in that heavyweight bracket, the weight advantage doesn't really matter anywhere near as much after that point. If you start to gain any more after that, then the returns, they start to diminish quite a bit. It's not like comparing a featherweight to a welterweight, it's just comparing a heavyweight to a slightly fatter heavyweight. And from what I can tell, Mega Aggron, he's just a regular Aggron. He's about 3 inches taller and 80 pounds heavier. Like, yeah, I mean, the guy, he can destroy tanks with its horns and all that, but I would have assumed that to already be within the skill set of a base form Aggron, would you not? You can just tell when there's not much special going on with a Mega Evolution, when the lore, it sort of just says stuff like, yeah, tanks, he can do one of them in. What else? I've got a few spikes. Its tail. It gets a bit thicker, and two bands around it. There's Megas in this video who can destroy skyscrapers by just a thought crossing their mind. Mega Aggron's got nothing to its name. My man's focused on the wrong bands. He doesn't even go mental or anything like all the other big boys on the Mega Evolution roster. So I can't even say his psyche has changed too much to make him, you know, more mentally dangerous. He's really about as dangerous as you'd expect a normal Aggron to be, which admittedly, he's incredibly dangerous. You know, I would be quite upset to find out Aggrons were real, but he's really just a base form Aggron, except now he's a lot more water resistant. That's alright. Mega Blastoise keeps it simple with the transformation here. Sticks to what it knows as a shelled piece of heavy artillery as a big boy. The guy just gets a bit heavier and a lot more strapped up. The big man is literally anti-tank weaponry, while the main cannon is fronting that kind of power at minimum for a range of 6 miles on all. The guy's just a monster. He could give you a 15-minute drive's worth of a head start and still manage to snipe you. In all fairness, it's not insane numbers by Pokemon standards. Tanks in our world can already shoot with miles worth of range. But you have to remember, this isn't some technological marvel of military warfare developed over 100 years. This is just a big, burly geezer. He's just a guy. A turtle, but he's still just a guy. The thing here, though, he's somewhat limited in the sense that he's not as mobile as the other Mega Evolutions. In the ocean, you know what, fair enough. But generally speaking, he's a bit more of a boots on ground sort of support class for the rest of them. If you gave a Mega Blastoise the mobility of a Mewtwo, then that'd just be overpowered. He's effectively an insta-kill cannon for any object within its eyesight. Pidgeot's Mega, it's gotta just be a generic power-up. No stupid gimmick there. That is simply a textbook get battered by the villain, come back, transformation last minute. Now, I love Mega Pidgeot. That simplicity is a big part of it. But if Pidgeot wasn't scaring you too much before, I don't think the Mega is going to be putting too much on the table to make you reconsider that. As far as the lore goes, he gets a nice little stamina boost, gets on the EPO, can fly for 2 weeks without rest. I mean, it's kind of cool. But if you take some of the context clues here from base form Pidgeot, who could apparently create create gusts of winds that bend tall trees. And you could imagine what the Mega's gonna be up to. Probably be uprooting them trees with all the muscular gains it's apparently boasting. So in all fairness, since it's incredibly fast and airborne, those wings, they could be taking entire houses down. It'd be a bad day to be a garden trampoline when Mega Pidgeot starts making the rounds. The guy may very well be just a portable tornado, so for that, as generic as the power-up may look, the threat is still somewhat decent. Mega Camerupt, he's not getting very far, but wherever he may roam, a portable volcano, small scale or not, is gonna be stupidly dangerous for all those unlucky enough to be local to one. I mean, just take a second to think here. He trips over, he's spilling all over the place. God forbid he happens to sneeze, or you accidentally give him a big spook. Yeah, nice, good one. You've only made him go and plume all over the street again. A Bomber Snow with a little bit of the Mega Sauce, I think he just gets the DeviantArt treatment. Fatter and furrier, which depending on your personal preferences, your own phobias, very well could be the most threatening one of all. Prepped very much for hibernation, maybe not so much world domination like a good half of the Megas might be. But the thing about a Bomber Snow is he loves a good conjuring of a good old blizzard, and the Mega version is only going to greatly increase the radius of that. This is why I found him difficult to separate from Glalie. The Mega form of him is just spewing endless blizzards, can seemingly freeze anything at once, and being a portable blizzard, that'd make it dangerous enough. Thankfully, its form essentially softlocks it into some kind of orthodontic head brace, so he'd struggle trying to eat you, but the ability to cast what would be borderline uninhabitable conditions from mouth breathing alone, that's gotta be some big threat to us. Hypothetically, if the pair of them could cast a powerful and long enough blizzard, like a strong enough blizzard, you have to understand, that's the area shut down completely. Travel, power outages, your pipes are freezing, deliveries ceased, you're stuck in the house. I'd probably rank these two far higher for that alone if Mega Evolutions weren't so rare and temporary. They'd barely get a half chub of a blizzard going before it's time for bed. That's it, we've had enough of the AC. Back in the Pokeball for you. On paper, you'd imagine Aggron to be the bigger threat when compared to Mega Heracross, but I would argue being able to destroy a tank is far less impressive than being able to throw one over your head. Mega Heracross, as vile as this specimen looks, you gotta hand it to him. The guy's got some impressive PRs under his belt. Now, the max lifts he's gotta be pumping the numbers. He's exaggerating a bit. 500 times its body weight. Right, so in a literal sense, if you were to take this stupid encyclopedia that way, 31 tons of throwing strength. About enough to sling a fully topped up cement truck. Heracross seems far less violent than a lot of the other Mega forms. It might not ever use this insane strength for evil, but like, depending on your house size, there's a solid chance he could just pick the whole thing up with its two horns. Maybe he'd need another few Mega Heracross around to get the job done, but at the very least, if he's going solo, he could throw your house one chunk at a time. Mega Mawile, another one of them who gets a bit of the roid rage once he gets on the Mega Sauce, gains a vicious disposition, rips you apart with two sets of jaws as opposed to just a singular set previously. Now its head is fighting over food out of you. Maybe the most brutal way to go out of all the Pokemon here. But at the very least, this threat is very range dependent. You'd have to be really unlucky or just be stupid enough to fall victim to the reach disadvantage those jaws have. As long as you're smart enough to keep a spectator's distance away, there's no realistic chance them clamps can take a munch out of you. Them jaws have the power to turn boulders to dust. So if it ever were to happen to you, at the very least, it would likely be an instant transaction. It'd sort of be like a car being crushed into a cube, except you get crushed into a very watered down blob of tomato puree. Just imagine Mega Mawile with that cracked Modern Warfare 2 commando perk, meleeing all across the map. Everyone would be devoured in one consistent chain, like a never-ending Shadow the Hedgehog homing attack chain, just teleporting to each next victim. Scizor predictably remains to be a menace in Mega form. He's got the violent motivation, willingness to rip anything to shreds. The thing here though, he's had his clamps clamped a little bit. He's got a bit of a nerf going on, since the Mega Evolution can't sustain battle for a long period of time, so it's on borrowed time, even more so than the already borrowed time that a Mega Evolution already is. Scizor got no gas tank, has he? Not been doing his cardio. Them clamps haven't spent enough time being locked around the handles of the elliptical. Its body even starts to melt. It's that incapable of maintaining the form. So a very threatening Mega form here clearly, but I think the timer it has going on limits how much of a threat it could really be. Practically speaking, he's really just a more able bipedal Mega Mawile with really bad cardio. Mega Houndoom just turns you straight to ash. The threat level here really depends on how quickly it's doing that, because I figured almost every fire Pokemon is already well capable of that. But let's just say if Mega Houndoom is turning you to ash within seconds, like if it landed a fire blast on you, visually speaking, it'd be no different than chucking the Harry Potter invisibility cloak on you. Or if it used Ember on you in little segments, it'd look like your body's vanishing. You're losing a shadow game in Yu-Gi-Oh! Which, for how insanely overpowered some of these Megas are, I firmly believe it could. Its fire would just make you vanish. Then that's a huge threat to be facing. The base form already leaves you with the pain of burning forever. I reckon the Mega could turn you into ash, and you'd still be feeling the pain inside the urn. Lucario, one of the strongest Megas about, definitely, and although still a very huge threat, especially if you got one of those furry phobias, I reckon their threat is one that can be very controlled. In a 1v1, an octagon-like setting, Lucario is probably one of the worst matchups you could get, but overall, I just can't see him causing the same nationwide destruction as much as, like, the real heavyweights, like Tyranitar and all that. I mean, yeah, he's got his little aura waves and all that. He can smash boulders easily with him. Oh, cute. But I reckon it'd take him at least a solid couple of days to really put a dent in a big enough city. Maybe I'm completely wrong on that because I don't watch movies and that, but I'm not really basing it on that to begin with. He's got every tool available to be dangerous, but also doesn't particularly stand out in any insane way. Like, he's just a bit of a hard fella who can shoot the occasional aura beam. He's not shooting 6-mile accurate hydro pumps with the power of a tank or throwing 30 tons over his head or anything like that. And as far as I know, he's limited to barefoot travel as well. He can't fly or anything, although I wouldn't be surprised if in one of the movies or something, he just gets an arse pull, materializes wings out of aura. Definitely not as mobile as Blaziken, nowhere near the box jump PR Blaziken's fronted. So I reckon even with ranged attacks, Mega Lucario, he's quite limited to close quarters. In the Mega form, he's got all these phrases describing him like heartless and no mercy whatsoever and all these other TNA pay-per-view names it gets described as. But that doesn't mean he's suddenly uncontrollable, a complete liability like the angry Mega Evolution. Lucario, he seems willing to cooperate and listen to trainers as far as I'm aware. So its overall threat level, I would say, isn't too high. Still quite high, but not too high relatively speaking for how strong Mega Lucario is. Mega form or not, Alakazam is still an Alakazam. So the large threat of getting spooned is always on the table. On a physical level, Alakazam somehow gets even less threatening, somehow took even less points invested in strength to max out intelligence even more. The guy can now look at you and know your entire life from birth to death. Do you know how insane that is? Its threat level may really depend on who it's looking at and what its motivations are. If you've got in your possession some dodgy hard drives or plan on making one of your hard drives dodgy within the next 50 years, he will be a huge threat to you. I think that kind of power is insanely threatening, and that's ignoring the psychic superpowers it's got. He could look at a newborn child who will one day have access to nuclear launch codes and know them instantly. Mega Alakazam just G-checking your kids upon arrival to this life. Just a couple with their newborn in the hospital, and Mega Alakazam's there like, ooh, yeah, I'll chuck that one out if I were you. He's gonna grow up to go to Body Blue meetups. Oh, such a beautiful son. Congratulations. Real shame what's gonna happen to him when he gets chucked into that Mr. Beast internment camp in 2038. Mega Diancie, a legendary pair of biceps on him is one thing, but the ability to manipulate diamonds, now that is an underrated superpower if you really think about it. If you can make diamonds at will and into anything you want, you could be unbeatable. Just wrap yourself in a bubble, no one can even harm you. Diancie does make swords now and again, but if it got a little bit more creative about it, this could be one of the most dangerous Mega Evolutions around. But as it stands now, I don't see Diancie being too violent. But if you took Diancie's powers and gave it the brain of a schizophrenic Sharpedo, it would destroy the lot of us. It's a very common observation with Steelix, but he just couldn't exist. He's like a Diglett if it were the size of a Boeing 737. Steelix already would be a menace to the ground, destroying crops, roads, everything. Mega Evolution, it's only going to make all of that worse. So it's a complete threat to our way of life, and we might not even be able to stop it. It's hard not to imagine Mega Steelix destroying cities like the Underminer piping up at the end of The Incredibles. Mega Pinsir. Now he sounds, oh, you wouldn't think it, would you? From such a lovely looking fella. But he sounds mortifying in a constant state of excitement to pierce and shred you to pieces. A Mega Stone, it turns Pinsir into a psychopath. At them speeds, I don't even think the pincers would impale you. I reckon you'd just spontaneously combust like a water balloon filled with red bath slime. Another entry is saying it's excited because it's so happy about being able to fly now. Now that's the one I'm all here for. I'm about that. I'd be buzzing too if I could fly about the place. That one, it's a lot more wholesome, but it's just not quite enough, is it? To ignore the threats that a flying euphoric Pinsir is feeling. A 30-mile-per-hour flying stag beetle, 2 weapons on his head, pinging so hard his eyes have turned yellow. If that's not of any threat to you, then your neurons are fried, or you yourself are pinging as well. Probably the reason your neurons are fried. Beedrill obviously somewhat frail and weak compared to the others here, but I feel as though almost no other Mega Evolution has the intent, motivation, and most importantly, equipment to be this threatening. Guy could just fly straight through you without even moving its body. Marathon runners show more resistance pushing past the finish line ribbon than a Mega Beedrill would flying clean through you. With that insane speed, you'd stand no chance escaping, and he's fully committed to shanking you with its abdomen, with its arms, with its legs. He might use them all at once, line them together, and do you in like he's the Eclipse Cannon, even if that means it dies itself like some bees do, and has the sentience to be fully aware of that possibility. Don't believe for 1 second it wouldn't kamikaze you. You'd be going down with it. This isn't even going from bee to wasp. This is fast tracking straight into Hornet. And the last thing Hornets need are an extra 40 kilos of muscle and the height of Danny DeVito. Sharpedo would be a demon. There'd be nothing left if Mega Sharpedos were about on the prowl, on the regular, not against a timer especially. Only way they'd be getting humbled is if some secret Mega Sharp... I was about to say Mega Sharpedo. Like a jumbo Mega Sharpedo emerges from the uncharted depths of the ocean to Big Brother them. Sharpedo is a Mega built for a bit of war. He's already a shark and a torpedo fused together. Now you chuck in the Mega Stone and he's unlocked combat instincts as well. It's a torpedo that will now instigate the wars. The Mega Stones made him angry as well. Oh right, now the guy's angry. Well, how was he feeling for the first 11 years before the Mega Evolution? Was that him content? Was that the face of a happy camper? The face of a happy wee little friendo? I mean, to be fair, the Mega one does look a lot more fuming. I feel like they should have subverted expectations. The Mega Stone should have made Sharpedo really friendly and approachable. Mega Gengar. No interest in opponents unless it perceives them as prey. Immediately a top threat right there. It's got all the motivation it needs, and there's nothing you could do about it. The guy sinks into another dimension. So when you see Mega Gengar lurking about from under the pavement, he's not just glitching through the walls like he usually does. Classic Gengar. He's a cross-dimensional entity now. If it had the potential to cause more mass damage like a Gyarados or any of the flying Mega ones, it'd be unstoppable. The only thing stopping it from being a true S-tier threat here is the fact that he shares the same size as a mini fridge. Base Gengar would already be impossible to land a hit on, but phasing through dimensions, that's just unfair. That leaves only a handful of Pokemon, mostly legendaries, who could even attempt to smack him about. Solgaleo, Lunana, Necrozma, maybe a few of the Ultra Beasts who can travel through dimensions, but us civvies, you know, us civilian trainers and our civilian Pokemon are standing no chance. No one has access to these interdimensional Pokemon to defend yourself from a Mega Gengar. It'd be like having a stalker who's only vulnerable to pure fission weaponry. What may seem like another generic little Super Saiyajin 1 form change for Charizard. He's got flight, amplified fire breathing. It's going to be a lot more dangerous than the Pidgeot type of Super Saiyajin 1 upgrade. Charizard in this form, he's got jet speeds now, on top of what you could only assume to be more city leveling flames. Because I'd say Moltres is at minimum like a city level threat. In Charizard Y, he's effectively just a Moltres who's not a complete bum. Improved in every way if you're talking about the physical threat it would pose. So he's surprisingly not too bad here. The guy's essentially like a sentient napalm strike. Originally, I was thinking Blaziken would be like a slightly spicier, a bit of a
crispy.
Threat than Lucario. Both these close quarters MMA fighter type threats. You know the guy breathes fire, but you wouldn't expect him to have the same widespread destruction potential as a Charizard flying over a city. Till I remembered, the guy was jumping 30-story buildings fresh off the combustion evolution. That Megaform isn't flying, but he may as well have the maneuverability of a well-charged up Dragon Ball Z character. Lucario's got his aura waves and all of that, but Blaziken is considerably more mobile, and his power and speed only goes up along with the body temperature. That's not just a fun, overpowered ability in-game, it's an overpowered ability in practice. The guy could be a limitless threat. You'd have to cut the legs straight out from under him before it gets his stretches finished, or else he'll be leaping in the air, blaze kicking straight through buildings. You'd better not let him get his 5-star jumps in. Charizard Y, firmly believe being able to level out a city if it wanted. The X form though, it could do the exact same damage in much less time and definitely far less effort. Base Charizard already has fire that can supposedly melt anything, and now it's got blue flames on tap, readily available. The hottest flames possible, very difficult to extinguish compared to the standard. I'm not really the guy to ask about this kind of thing, but I don't even think you can extinguish blue flames with just water. That's assuming Charizard X essentially gains the ability to breathe gas fires. He's got a big hob in his belly. Water is the last thing you should be feeding gas fires, obviously, but so if it works the same way, if Charizard X can get one big blue fire spreading across, he could just let that do the work. He can pull up a chair from that moment on. I'll revert back into the base form. Aye, sure, no bother. Your work is done. Crack open a cold tinny. Anywhere destroyed by Charizard X would need an island's worth of dry powder extinguishers. Whatever land it overthrows, I think you just gotta call that a write-off. Just let him have it. Just let him do what he wants. Domination victory. Let him just alter the biome completely and hope he doesn't get any funny little warmongering ideas in his head and starts invading other countries the same way. So we got a Mewtwo with augmented muscles. The guy's telling me he's got 1 ton of grip strength on those little massage balls he calls a set of thingies. He can now sprint 100 meters in 2 seconds. And I've got to say, for Pokemon standards, those are rookie numbers. I'm very underwhelmed. That's only 7.5 seconds off the human world record. I reckon that's quite slow for a few of the middle stage Pokemon, let alone a legendary, let alone a mega legendary. Now obviously this one's still an insanely huge threat because, you know, the guy is still Mewtwo. He's still that same guy who burned down Cinnabar Island and manslaughtered a bunch of rocket scientists and all that. But he's not really swaying me too hard here, at least in the X form. I feel like there's a good handful of Mega Evolutions that are so much more psychopathic that they would be far more threatening than Mewtwo X. I just think, relatively speaking, the Muscles, they're not making it much more dangerous than it already was, especially with a 2-second 100 meter. Geez, you could find an Arcanine down the road who's smashing that time. Even the grip strength of 1 ton. I feel as though base Mewtwo could have already done that with its psychic powers anyway. Grip strength human record is around 160 kg, I'm seeing. Mega Mewtwo X, augmented muscles and all. It's only like, what, 6 times what the peak human can supposedly do? Nah. It's just not swaying me here. I'd expect that kind of grip strength if a human could use a Mega Stone. Mewtwo has all the potential to be arguably the biggest threat, but I think him being sound of mind compared to some of the other more violent ones, it makes him a little bit more lenient with his destructive capabilities. It sounds like he has complete control over this overwhelming, well, say overwhelming. I think he's handling it well. Not much power to be overwhelmed by. What, you can now sprint like an Arcanine jogs, cool. But he's got control over these new augmented muscles. Unlike, say, a Mega Aerodactyl, he seems like a fair man. Much more willing to open up talks and negotiation. And Mewtwo, as intelligent as he is, he just strikes me as the sort to lay off very easily if you just hit him with one of them corny film speeches like,
"No, Mewtwo. This isn't you. If you do it, then you'll be no better than them.
Get the f*** out of here." Another one of them painful transformations that's making it a lot more vicious, and of all things, you had to go and do it to an Aerodactyl. Aerodactyl was already from another time where being cutthroat was the meta. Standard procedure to hold 0 morals. Getting resurrected in a cozy lab on Cinnabar Island, discovers what a 200 yen lemonade is, and it starts to soften him up a bit. The Mega takes him back to his prime form, when to survive, you had to be wiping out entire Omastar bloodlines just to be fed for the night. So you bring that into the modern world, it's gonna be a huge threat, said to attack anything that moves through pure irritation of its body alone. That, along with the primal urge to devour everything with a little bit of meat on its bones, any kind of bone you can even get a stew going with, is going in that belly. If Mega Aerodactyl, if they were roaming about, I'd be asking them Cinnabar fossil scientists if they could just sort me out. Just a quick little reversal procedure. You know, transfer me into a lump of clay. For my own safety, it's either me or him who has to go inside the rock. And Aerodactyl, it doesn't strike me as a man who's willing to sit at the negotiation table. I'd much rather risk getting locked in a glass cabinet down a museum than get torn to shreds by a Mega Aerodactyl. For some, Absol may very well be a visit from the Grim Reaper, but I'd much rather have that interaction than the Garchomp variant of Grim Reaper. Insane threat levels here, equipped with 2 slice, mad with rage. Yeah, he's just another one of them. Another one of them. Crushing white monster, just see red, brother. Latios and Latias, seemingly no threat, I would say, but strap them up like a Scyther and give the pair of them a brain like a shell-shocked Mega Aerodactyl, then I very much would reconsider that. A large jet fighter plane that could and is more than willing to shank you. That's not even shanking at that point. That's more like being sliced in half by one of them Dothraki curved swords, one of them drive-by horseback shankings, except it's a hammerhead shark cruising about like an X-Wing. And that's not even mentioning the guy, he's still a Garchomp, even ignoring the weaponry. In between all of that slicing, he's still earthquaking, busting out Draco meteors, digs. A guy can dig if he wants to. Very strong digger, many forget this. He may just bust out a dig on you, and the one time he does, you won't even know what to think. Base Gyarados was already known to destroy entire cities. Its appearance alone was like a death sentence to the area you were in. You may as well be staring at the Colossal Titan over the wall. Except now, the Megastone infects its brain, telling it only to destroy. Could either be the Megastone doing that, or he ate a dodgy Goldeen, and now he's got one of them RFK Jr. brainworms. Like, the form change here is another one of those painful ones. The stress is what makes him lethal. It's like that Ed, Edd n Eddy episode where Ed's fuming because he got a stone stuck in his shoe, and he just no diffs the entire cul-de-sac for the whole day. Mega Gyarados has Ed tier strength, now moves at supersonic speeds, and has the brainworm motivation to burn everything in its sight. At the very least, Gyarados is somewhat nerfed by the fact that it has to exist in water. But honestly, I wouldn't be surprised if he finds a way to bypass that limit. I reckon the guy just hyper beam his own river through the land before thinking of leaving a city unravaged. I've never really understood logistically the idea that Metagross can only go Mega from a fusion. Like the other pieces, well, they just have to be local enough for this whole thing to work. But we all know how planetary level threatening Metagross could potentially be solo. And if you crunch the numbers, you go ahead and add 1 Metang, 2 more Beldums, and now you're dealing with 1.5 Metagross, 50% more of the big man. Another one where its brain's been affected. All 4 of them, all 4 supercomputer ones apparently have been set to kill. Ruthless mentality gained, clutch at any means of victory. Battles so cruel you can't even watch. Well, what was he doing before? I don't think I could watch a base form Metagross pin someone down and eat it with its little disc mouth. Even takes the coward's way out if he's losing. So bloodlusted, he's willing to hit you with the yes, even for you, Kakarot. I can't see any of the other Mega Evolutions exploding like this, but a Mega Metagross of all things exploding. You'd imagine it to be a rare situation. It'd be losing a fight badly enough to resort to that, but the potential damage, nuclear level threat for that sore loser ticking time bomb alone. A monster who already spars with mountains getting a Mega Evolution. It just, where was the need? If the guy was already leaving maps outdated just from walking through mountains and burying rivers and all that. If Mega versions were walking about, they'd probably have to update the world map. Globes would have to come out annually updated like the Guinness Book of Records. Meanwhile, all of this carnage going on, surrounded by a perpetual uninhabitable sandstorm. The guy's pretty much in one of them bubble balls all to himself as far as we're concerned. What makes this one even more threatening as well, no one even knows if it can hear its trainer's orders. I mean, with all that sand constantly surrounding the guy, I can't really blame him, so he's another one. Just sees red, bro, that's it, you just have to wait until he's tucking himself out to sleep again. Even Mega Gyarados was willing to listen at sometimes. If it trusts the trainer enough, he's open to negotiations. Tyranitar, he's just a walk-in earthquake. It doesn't matter if he can hear the trainer's orders. He uses earthquakes each step he takes. The trainer's there like, yeah, yep, okay, sure, earthquake. No, go for it. Oh, and another one. Yeah, sure. See, I told him to do that. Yeah, that's the attack I commanded him to do. What's 50 times in a row? Yeah, I've told him to do it 50 times. It's a good move. Hey, it gets the job done. You know, I never stray too far off the menu from what you know. He's a good boy, though. He's a really good boy. Yeah, I might take him for a back rub after this, after he's done destroying that continent over there. Now, there's a lot of angry boys when the Megastone morphs them. But Salamence, he's got to just be the worst. He sees the worst amount of red. Immediate rampage, stupidly powerful, no remorse for any man and or Pokemon slaughter that it causes just by existing. Gyarados, again, willing to listen to a trusted trainer. Tyranitar, he's not even listening. He's not even paying attention. Salamence, he's listening. He knows full well what's going on. And he might even just bite the hand that feeds. He might just devour its own trainer. How dare you start giving him orders? As a trainer, a very big risk to be taken just for a cheap little power boost. The Mega Ring around your wrist, like an Omnitrix setting for voluntary euthanasia. Now, you gotta look at things both ways here. There's always two sides, and I, for one, would be fuming as well at my trainer. Not only have you made me go through this incredibly painful transformation, you've also made me look like some kind of mythical croissant. Mega Salamence could not exist with humans in any capacity. Anyone standing in its path gets sliced in two. Yeah, like comically as well. The kind where he just zips past you and you slowly start to slide off your legs as you're looking to the camera like, just my luck. Guy even continues his flight as if nothing happens. He couldn't even care. You're just a bug on the windscreen to him. He might even use rain dance and turn the wipers on as if he hasn't just sliced several families of four cruising past the motorway. Now that is how locked in you need to be. Can't help but respect it. Manectric in its mega form, the biggest dark horse here, because he's got some insane Pokedex entries behind him. With the mega form, apparently it can travel at the speed of a lightning bolt itself. See, this is what I mean. Mewtwo flexing, his little 2-second 100-meter sprint PR, like a kid trying to show you a front flip on the trampoline. That's only getting like 90 degrees worth of spin to it. Mega Manectric is fronting the type of impossible to match feats that we're all here for. The speed of a lightning bolt. Oh yeah, just a humble 270,000 miles per hour apparently. He could near enough get to the moon in the time it would take for him to watch a cheeky little episode of Gilmore Girls. Traveling like that has to have some kind of looming world-ending threat around it, especially if it has the properties of a lightning bolt as well. Now, I don't want to profile the guy here, alright, but something's telling me, call it a gut instinct, observation, hacky, intuition, whatever it may be, but I just think he might, maybe, be a lightning bolt. And if he's a weaponized form of getting struck by lightning, at those speeds especially, then Manectric is an insane, near impossible to stop threat. The guy's just cracked. Mewtwo, we all know, already a huge threat to humanity if it wanted to be. Given it the Mega Evolution buff, only gonna amplify it. And with the Y form, there's nothing too fancy here. On paper, it's just a Mewtwo on the mental trend. And Mewtwo, nowhere near as psychopathic as any of the other Mega Evolutions I've just mentioned, who become uncontrollable. And it sounds like a simple power boost, but it's insane if you believe the lore that's stated about it. The Pokedex is saying a mere thought alone can smash a skyscraper. Are you really trying to get me to believe that Mewtwo just gains the power of manifestation? Mewtwo gets hit with the Megastone. His brain absorbs the entire transcript of The Secret. A brain as big as Mewtwo's, yet still fully sold into the law of attraction grift. Becomes one of those mental aunties making mood boards of Channing Tatum on him. Mewtwo Y probably thinks its Megastone is some kind of mood-lifting crystal. Like, come on, let's be real. Its thoughts aren't doing that damage. Its powers are. That's like a gaslight of manifestation. It's like saying, hey, watch. I bet you any money that guy over there is gonna trip over. Then walking straight up to the guy and ankle picking him. I mean, I shot you're technically right, yeah, but you brute strengthed your way into making that prediction a reality. Yeah, mate, I'll bet you any money that I'm about to go to the bar and order me a San Miguel. Oh yeah, really? You think that's gonna happen? Oh, what a prophet you are, Big Damer. What a prediction. What insight you have. Jesus, why not go further? The skyscraper is just a thought crossing its mind. Imagine if it actually tried putting a bit of effort in, actually ran a calculation through its brain, work out the code needed, could just delete the Earth and replace it with Planet Sheen. This version of Mewtwo has to be top 3 at least, even though it's not as insane and mental and uncontrollable as like the Sharpedos and Aerodactyls. This is too overpowered. It's good that he is sound of mind, because destroying cities just because the thought crossed your mind is so stupidly overpowered. Unironically, it actually is a manifestation superpower near enough. If it had the brain of a Salamence, literally everything would be destroyed just from his thoughts being fueled 100% through gamer rage. He probably wouldn't even know what he's doing. If this thing even thinks of red, we're all seeing red. Number 1, even with Mewtwo's stupidly cracked ability, Mega Manetric's lightning bolt speed, it's still gotta be Mega Rayquaza. It's the full package, Big Ray, the Sky Slinky. The big man's destroying meteors like it's light work. This is just another level of threat compared to the rest of them. This is the one Mega Evolution specifically made to counter any nuclear level threats the Earth may have. You got Megas destroying the Earth down there, but Rayquaza is there to destroy the ones who could destroy the Earth. Keeps you lot down there in check. It was tough choosing between this and Mewtwo-Y, just for how insane that mind crush power is. But in all fairness, anything Mewtwo-Y could destroy with its mind, Rayquaza probably could through literally any other means. Probably his mind too, if he hit the books a bit more. Mewtwo-Y may take skyscrapers with ease, but destroying meteors, it has to be the more impressive feat if you take into consideration the size they could potentially be. There's a reason why he's the only one who needs not a Mega Stone. He's just that guy. The biggest threat any Mega Evolution could ever pose. Even with the Legends R1s approaching probably in like 2 weeks when Pokemon Day happens, I can't imagine anything topping Big Ray when it comes to power.